low. So the Republicans pander to white supremacists, and the Republicans pander to gun enthusiasts, and the Republicans pander to the anti-abortion fact. These are their constituencies, included that all of this would come to an end. Remember, it was back in 2017, in 2025, this year.
Imagine this: Donald Trump fuming in front of the cameras as Richard Wolffe calmly dismantles his economic lies piece by piece. This live TV showdown wasn't just a meltdown, it was a masterclass in exposing the truth. The real question is, how bad did Trump's ego take the hit? Before we move on, I would like you to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Trump kicked off the segment with his signature style: grandiose statements, exaggerated claims, and that smug grin. You know, the one he flashes when he tells the world he's the best negotiator on the planet. He boasted, yet again, about his perfect trade deals and how he allegedly saved the American economy from collapse. Of course, he threw in his favorite talking point, those 2017 tax cuts, touting them as a gift to hardworking Americans. At one point, he even referred to himself as the job creator-in-chief. If the camera zoomed out, you might have caught some eyes rolling among the live audience. It was classic Trump, loud, confident, and utterly detached from reality.
That's how they built the Republican Party. It's a coalition between the business community, which doesn't want to pay taxes, focused mainly on cutting corporate taxes and taxes of the rich. That act, who, if you don't have to pay them, well, then you don't have to raise the taxes. They're all worried sick about one thing: no one should make a mistake.
Enter Richard Wolffe, who sat across from him with the calmness of a man who's been waiting his entire career for a moment like this. Wolffe, an economist with a wealth of data and apparently zero patience for Trump's economic fiction, started chipping away. He didn't hurl insults or engage in Trump's circus-like antics. That's not Wolffe's style. Instead, he simply pointed to the numbers. The cold, unvarnished statistics that painted a much grimmer picture than Trump's fairy tale. Trump, however, didn't take the disruption lightly. The moment Wolffe presented real data, that orange complexion started shifting to something closer to beet red. Wolffe began with the 2017 tax cuts, which Trump described as a middle-class miracle. But Wolffe shattered that illusion by explaining that the vast majority of those tax benefits went straight to corporations and wealthy individuals. The average working-class family barely saw a dent in their yearly income, Wolffe noted. He even pulled up a list of numbers live on air, explaining how the bottom half of earners actually saw their share of wealth shrink during Trump's presidency. The president's response? Deflection. Trump interrupted mid-sentence, waving it off as fake news, a phrase he's probably trademarking at this point. But Wolffe wasn't a pundit who could be easily thrown off. He pressed forward, pointing out the gap between Wall Street's soaring profits and Main Street's struggles during Trump's tenure. Yes, Wall Street boomed, Wolffe said, but your average American worker? They were treading water, if not drowning. Trump didn't seem to have an answer to this, so instead, he leaned into his classic strategy: volume over logic. The interruptions came faster, each one less grounded in reality than the last. At one point, Trump muttered something about him being the reason more people own stock, as though every struggling mom working 2 jobs suddenly became a day trader. And then came the pièce de résistance. Richard Wolffe didn't just stop at naming disparities. He called out the harm. He showed how Trump's economic policies weren't neutral failures. They made things worse for everyday Americans. Deregulation in industries like healthcare and finance, for example, left families vulnerable while CEOs got richer. Wolffe calmly laid it out in simple terms. This wasn't trickle-down economics. It was flood-upwards economics. Trump's reaction? Absolute chaos. First, his voice got louder. Then his hands started doing that flailing motion, chopping the air as if it'd make the facts disappear. He tried changing the subject, rattling off a list of campaign accomplishments, but Wolffe kept pulling him back to the numbers.
and a whole lot of special constituencies which are brought together in the Republican Party, who come together in the Republican Party, and the deal is you support anti-taxes. When Mr. Trump was president the first time, the one major economic act of his first presidency.
Eventually, Trump returned to his favorite insult: fake news, repeating it as though no one on the planet has ever heard those words come out of his mouth before. But the audience wasn't buying it. Every time Wolff corrected Trump, you could hear chuckles from the few in the room who weren't paid to clap on cue. But perhaps the most devastating blow came near the end. Wolff brought up income inequality, pointing out how Trump's policies had widened the wealth gap to record levels. Under your leadership, Wolff said, the richest got richer, while most Americans just tried to make ends meet. This isn't success, it's failure. Trump's reaction was almost comical. Visibly agitated, he called Wolff a so-called economist, accused him of being a liberal plant, and then, when none of that stuck, threw in a random insult about Wolff's tie.
With a deal. We'll give you the special thing you're interested in if you make sure to keep the taxes on business, and we will help you with the guns and the fundamentalist Christianity and all the rest of it, okay? We all know that was the tax cuts of December 2017. One of the greatest tax cuts in American history. So Mr. Trump's real agenda, he hasn't discussed it much because he's got to kind of manage it.
Yes, his tie. By the time the segment wrapped up, Trump had moved from bluster to full-on meltdown mode. He misdirected, he rambled, and eventually, according to on-set sources, he stormed off before producers could cut to commercial. But the damage was already done. Wolff hadn't just exposed Trump's less-than-stellar economic track record. He'd made him look absolutely unprepared to defend it. So why does all of this matter? Sure, it's entertaining to see Trump get flustered by facts, but there's something bigger at play. This showdown wasn't just about one man's ego getting bruised. It was about holding power accountable. Wolff didn't let Trump's noise cloud the truth, showing how important it is to cut through political rhetoric and look at the data. Richard Wolff's takedown wasn't just a smackdown of Trump's questionable economic claims. It was a reminder that facts still matter, even in a political circus. While Trump shouted fake news, Wolff calmly laid bare the problems: rising inequality, declining wages, and policies that made billionaires richer while average people struggled. Wolff's analysis went beyond Trump, though, calling out a systemic issue. We are the rogue nation for the rest of the world. It's a reality check we all need. Now imagine Trump storming off set, muttering fake numbers, while the internet floods with memes. Yeah, facts can be brutal,